Hi, all. I'm Jessica Radloff. I'm the West Coast entertainment correspondent for Glamour magazine and glamour.com. I'm so glad you guys could join us today. I love Superstore so much. I hope I'm qualified to do this. I think so because not only is Superstore set in St. Louis, I'm from St. Louis. Every time I go to St. Louis, my mom takes me to, are you from St. Louis? Go Cardinals, go Blues. Every time I go home, my mom, I swear to God, we're always at Walmart or Target or whatever, and she says, stock up on everything and bring it back to LA because it's so much more expensive there. So I feel like I live at a Superstore all the time. I'm just a little disappointed. I asked NBC for one of the uniforms from Cloud9 today. It didn't come in time, so I'm sorry. You'll have to do with this. But I'm so excited to welcome the amazing and talented America Ferrera. And I should say SAG Award winner, Emmy winner, Golden Globe winner. Love.
Hi, thank you.
Well, first of all, congratulations. We got a season 2 pick. Like I'm on the show too. Season 2 pickup. It's going to be on NBC this fall, Thursday nights. I know you start shooting in July, so what can you preview, if anything, as we head into season 2?
Well, first of all, thank you everyone for coming. So awesome. I like the intimate setting. Although I know we're streaming on the interwebs.
Yep.
Hi to them. The writers just got back in the writing room. And so I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen, really, except for that I do know that we will, of course, address the strike. I'm really excited about the possibilities there. I was really, really thrilled about building up to this. I think that what's exciting and fun about the show is there's a little, it's a bit of a sneak attack. You know, you think you're watching something kind of fun and fluffy and bright and, a fun, quick way to spend 22 minutes. And then every now and then there are these kind of gut punches of like, oh, real life. And I felt like this episode was that episode where we got to really ground the world and really bring the reality through these characters that you've come to know and hopefully have come to like, or at least dislike, but you like disliking them. So I was really excited about this episode because for me, these are the moments that I really live for. Yeah. Even when I'm watching comedy, I want to laugh, obviously, but I also want to feel something and I want to feel like I can relate. So that's why I wanted to share this episode with the audience today because to me, I feel like this episode is kind of the culmination of what the show, I think, aspires to, which is to be funny, to deliver the laughs, but always be about something.
Yeah, and Amy was the first role, I believe, you were offered that wasn't specifically for a Latina character. What did that mean to you, that all those roles were really for whoever was the best fit as an actor?
Well, it wasn't something that I noticed at the time. It's something that I realized in retrospect. But, what I was really drawn to when I read the script was, first of all, that never mind race and ethnicity, but there was not a stereotyping of the kinds of people who work in these stores, which I think we can all safely say there is a stereotype of the person working in a Walmart and who they are and how they got there and what their life is about. And the fact that Justin chose to write about these everyday people, working men and women in corporate America who were intelligent and had heart and were funny, that to me felt fresh and new. And then, to go a step further, when the script came to me, they'd already cast Colton in the role of Garrett, Nico in the role of Mateo. And I thought, I read the script and thought, oh my gosh, none of these roles have any ethnicity attached to them, which sounds like who cares? But when you read scripts all day, every day, you know that if it doesn't say Asian, Black, Latino, the default is white. And that's, there has to be a reason to cast outside of that default. And so to me, it kind of hit me like, oh, wow, they're casting, and they came to me for Amy, and Amy's not written Latina. Of course, Amy becomes Latina because I step into that role, but that doesn't become the thing that defines her. And so I was really excited about that, excited that the world Justin was trying to create wasn't going to subscribe to those sort of token characters, the sort of the one joke ethnic roles where you don't really get to dive in and explore, what's the person behind the most obvious label that the writer puts on them.
Yeah, and you're also a producer on the show too, which is amazing. I'm going to get to that in a second, but I want to go back in time when you were Little America, and I read that when you were first starting out.
Some people think I'm still little.
But I read when you were first starting out that your mom didn't encourage you to go down this path, that you wanted to start acting, but she was very weary of it because she knows how hard it is. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a little bit of both. I think, my family and my friends loved watching me perform, and they loved that I enjoyed my talent. But, I don't think any parent really wants their child's life to be harder than life is. And that career path for any parent, but I think especially for an immigrant mother who came to this country so that her children could become doctors and lawyers, it was probably a little harder for her to take. Like, oh my gosh, you're a smart girl, you could get into a great school, why would you take such an uncertain path? And there's no evidence that there's a place for you in that industry. And so I think that was an element of it too, is people would look at me and be like, okay, sure, good luck. Like, they didn't see where I would fit in. And I was naive enough and delusional enough as a young person, and kind of in a wonderful way, didn't see myself the way other people saw me, that I never stopped to think, oh, there's no one who looks like me. Maybe that means there won't be a place for me. I just sort of jumped in, and, I think obviously I worked hard, but I was in a lot of 15 years ago when I got my first acting role, you had to be in the right place at the right time to get a job as an actor of color. That was a role that was deep and meant something. And I will say, I was in the right place at the right time many times, and I feel very fortunate about it. And it shouldn't be about that. You shouldn't have to be the one in a million who's in the right place at the right time. There should be opportunity enough that encourages young people of all backgrounds to say, this is my talent, this is what I'm good at, this is what I love, let me pursue that because I know there will be opportunity for me on the other end.
Right. Spoken like a true superstar. And then also I read that when you were growing up, you didn't go by your first name, America. You went by your middle name, Georgine, right?
Georgina.
Georgina,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, no, so my name is America Georgina Ferrera, and I was named after my mom. And not surprisingly, it's really hard to grow up with a name like America. I got teased a lot, and kids would, face me when they said the Pledge of Allegiance and all that kind of fun stuff that kids do. And so, yeah, I used my middle name, Georgina. And I was Georgie. I still am to my siblings. They still call me George. They make fun of me. They're like, "Oh, America." I'm like, that's my name. Like, why are you rolling your eyes at the name my parents gave me? But so once I graduated high school, or actually before, once I got my first acting job, and it was like, okay, what's my name gonna be? It was really about me wanting to like claim my own name and be who I was, and not sort of be afraid to be unique or unusual. So that's really when I started using my name. And now there are people in my life who've always called me Georgina, Georgie, but now, like, if anybody outside of like my nieces and nephews or my siblings, it's like nails on a chalkboard. I'm like, I don't even know who that is.
That's so funny. I love that so much. You talked about how you felt naive, as you were starting out and whatnot. Were you extremely confident when you went in for those early auditions? I feel like you were the type that probably was, but talk to me about when you first started going out and when you first got an agent. How comfortable were you with the process? What tips do you have for when you're walking into that room for the first time and really just feeling judged like so many actors do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that ever changes. I don't know very many people who like auditioning. I still audition. I still put myself on tape. It's kind of a harrowing process, but it's also what we do. It's how do you you know, drop in and let go of whatever the you know, whatever the expectations or whatever the voices are that would have you kind of, you know, be more present with your anxiety than with the story and the character. And you know, I think it comes with practice. I didn't know enough to be scared early on. You know, I do remember that my first audition ever, I was like 16, was for a bail bonds commercial. And I walked in. I would love to see that tape. I came in and like did the audition or whatever. It was like, "Daddy, come home, we miss you," or whatever. And then the casting director like stopped me and she's like, "Okay, that was great. Could you do that again but sound more Latina?" And I was like, "What?" Like, I'm like, "Oh, but I am Latina, so this is what a Latina sounds like." And she's like, "Okay, thank you." And then, like, I, of course, didn't get the job. But, you know, that was one of the first times that I really kind of realized that there were, you know, standards and boxes and labels that exist kind of in a heightened way inside of the entertainment industry that obviously exist outside of it. But, you know, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley with friends of all backgrounds. I mean, I grew up, you know, we had kids coming in from all over the city to go to school. So there wasn't a religion, a color, a size, a shape, ethnicity, a sexual orientation that you could name that wasn't represented in my school. That was the norm for me growing up. And I remember being in 5th grade and, you know, you know, I had Arab friends and Black friends and Chinese friends and Filipino friends. And I just thought like, oh yeah, that's what it means to be American. Like we all come to school and talk about, you know, DuckTales, and then we go home, you know, you go home and your parents like yell at you in a different language and you like eat something like that. Just always felt like what it meant to be American. Oh, right. And so I feel in a way, I mean, I didn't have a privileged background, I wouldn't say, but I would say I lived in a bubble in terms of there was so much diversity where I came from that I just assumed that it wasn't, you know, I just didn't imagine that there were places where those boxes existed anymore. And so that's what was jarring for me getting into it. And, you know, maybe that bubble is what allowed me to be delusional enough to think like, oh my God, I could totally play Annie, you know, and nobody would like blink an eye. And I grew up, you know, in junior high and high school in drama class, and every year we did Shakespeare festivals, and I played Othello, and I played, you know, and I played Desdemona, and I played, you know, like I didn't have a concept that I was limited when it came to the roles that I could inhabit and the stories I could tell. And that was something that I had to kind of learn, was that the industry had limitations about how they could see me. And I do think that that's changing. I think we're in the midst of a really important and heated conversation about you know, representation and what it means to grow up in a culture where you don't see yourself reflected back at you. And you know, I think growing up I didn't really think about it in those terms, but I definitely knew that, you know, in my own circles, friends and family would sort of, they would see that it was going to be a hard road for someone like me. And I somehow managed to sort of stay very, very delusionally optimistic that I would find opportunity.
Yeah, I was going to say too, you know, something we always like to ask at Glamour, was there ever a time that you felt like you were very close to throwing in the towel? Like, I cannot keep doing this anymore. It is exhausting. It, you know, it's just, it takes up so much emotional space to do this. So was there ever a time you came close to thinking, I don't know if this is in my future?
I mean, for me, you know, I found success very young. I was 17 and I started getting jobs, and not that it's been, a downhill ride, ever since. It's hard. It's work. It's like you finish a job and then you're unemployed again. And I would say that probably later on in my career, like after I had tons of success, and just speaking perfectly honestly, I feel like when you do come up against limitations that have been placed on you from the outside, that gets exhausting because there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you feel empowered to say, let me audition for that role. Like, I know you don't see me, but let me audition for it. And I don't mind doing the work and putting in the hard work and getting my shot and not making it. Okay, I'll pick myself up again and do and try again and get better and hone my skills. When I feel empowered and feel like that I'm doing everything I can do, when I feel like the line between what's in my power to change and then the other side of that, which I don't have any control over, which is the limitations placed on me, that place can be really exhausting. To feel like I've done everything I can do in this box. So how do I break out of this box? And while it's so important and so pivotal that we do and that we fight for that, it can be really disheartening and exhausting. And, I think often of the late actress Lupe Ontiveros, who played my mother in my first film role ever, Real Women Have Curves. And she said to me, so early on, we would talk a lot about her career. And she was honestly, she had Meryl Streep's talent, like she was an incredible actress, but she spent her career playing over like 70 maids, and to think that this woman, she paved that path and knowing that she was probably never going to be the one to benefit from it. I think about her and I think about how much of a better place we are in now. No, we're not there, but so it's our job now in this generation to trod this land and pave this path and push through this territory so that it does get better. And so, yeah, it gets exhausting to feel like, you're constantly fighting a fight, but it's necessary. And also there's inspiration around you if you look for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, brilliantly said again. In 2002, for Real Women Have Curves, that was your breakout role. I remember reading about you back then. And is there anything you wish you could go back and tell yourself at that time, either before you started the movie or even once you finished it?
No, because no, there isn't. Because I feel like, you are where you are, and that experience of Real Women Have Curves and, being a part of a film that we thought was going to be the small HBO channel movie that turned into a theatrical release that went to Sundance and won awards. And, the first time you start tasting that little bit of success, it will never be like that again. It will never be as great. It will never be as satisfying. It will never be as exciting. So I loved that I went into it just completely naive. I guess what I would say to myself at any of my previous ages, that I wish I knew earlier on was that it never stops being work. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get to a place where you're, oh, great, I've made it and I don't have to work to move out of this box that I now find myself in, or work to, find the next thing that's going to be interesting, or, work to get people to see me in this way, or fight for this role, or, the entire industry has changed in the last 10 years. Twitter didn't even exist when I was on television, like before. Now it's like, it's part of the job to like, are you live tweeting? I was like, are you asking me or are you telling me to live tweet? It like becomes like a thing,
right? Yeah.
The industry changes and in good ways and in bad ways. And and you're not going to get to a place where it's like easy sailing. Like, it just is work. And so I would say to myself, if you're going to continue to pursue this career, get used to the work and wake up every day and commit yourself to doing the work, and don't sit around, waiting for watershed moments, because those may come, but you don't have control over those, and you can't predict when those come. And when they come, they go fast too. So you could be in the top of the world, and 6 months later, you're struggling you're working again, you're fighting again to be recognized and to be given opportunities and to be able to take certain roles. So yeah, I guess I wish I would have known earlier, not because it would have changed anything I did, only because it would have changed my perception, which is, wake up and focus on doing the work and enjoying the work, because that's really where you're going to spend 99% of your time.
Right, totally. I have to bring up the fact that this fall will mark 10 years since Ugly Betty premiered, and that's just crazy to me. I remember where I was when I watched the pilot, and I always say I was Ugly Betty growing up. I looked like Ugly Betty. I love the show. I related to the show. Tell us a little bit about that time. What was it like headlining a show and being, the main star of it, really? I mean, it had such a cult following.
Yeah, we're actually, the entire cast is reuniting at the Austin Television Festival in a week, and we're like, I could cry just thinking about it right now. I mean, it's so hard to put into words. I didn't have anything to compare it to. So for a long time, I thought like, oh, you audition for a show, and it comes out and it's a big hit and everyone loves you, and like you change culture and it's so exciting, and this must just happen all the time because this is my first TV experience and it's happening to me. I knew then how special it was. I really, really did. The first time I heard about the show was through Salma Hayek. And I'd only like ran into her in an elevator at a film festival one time, and then like freaked out when she walked away. And then she like ran into me at a hotel, and she was like, "You are my ugly Betty." And I was like, "I'm sorry, come again?" And she, passionately told me about this story and this girl and who she was. And the moment she told me about the setup of this, this girl who people call ugly, who wears braces and looks crazy fashion-wise, goes and works at a fashion magazine because she wants to be a journalist, I just felt in my bones that the 10-year-old America was dying to see that show on television, and I just felt that it was going to be an amazing experience from the beginning, and it really, really was. I mean, it was grueling and hard work and exhausting, and I was sick a lot of the time, but it's separate. It's like my day-to-day experience was, I absolutely loved my cast. I absolutely loved playing this character. I had so much fun. I don't think I've ever laughed as hard as I did with that cast and those people, and we loved what we had on a day-to-day basis. And that was one part of it. And then the other part of it was what the show was in the bigger scheme of what it was saying, what it meant, showing a Latino family on television that didn't fit those stereotypes. My young nephew being an 11-year-old gay kid on TV with a family that loved and accepted him, defying the standards of beauty. We had people of all different colors in that show too. And, we got to have fun, but do storylines that were about, Papi's immigration status, and Justin coming out, and Michael Urie's character, Mark, being a 30-something-year-old man who's finally coming out to his mom, and then her rejecting him. We would get letters from 16-year-olds that were like, your show gave me the strength to come out to my family. And I still encounter so many fans of the show and people who talk about the deep level on which that show worked for them. And I don't take credit for it. I can talk about the show this way because I feel like from the beginning I saw the real magic that existed in it. And it was really, I grew up on that show. I grew up with Betty, You know, to me, Betty is a very real person, and she's not me, but I grew up with her, and we grew up together, and it was beautiful and magical, and it was daunting and a huge responsibility and a lot of work. You know, going back to
where's the poncho, by the way? Do you have
the
that?
poncho is in my New York apartment. Yeah.
Love it. Speaking of the Selma Hayek story that you were saying, was so funny. Once I was in New York about 3 or 4 years ago for our Glamour Women of the Year Awards, and I was on the subway with you and your husband, and I literally, it was one of those moments like, oh my God, it's America Ferrera. And as soon as I got off the subway, I called my mom because she loved the Ugly Betty too. I'm like, you're never going to believe who I was on the subway with. Like, it was so exciting. So same way that you freaked out about Selma, I totally get that. Totally. By the way, what happened to Daniel and Betty? Are we going to ever find out what their future was in store for them? I have to know.
Well,
this.
so Daniel and Betty aren't real people.
Yes, I am aware of that.
So when the show ended, nothing happened. But there is a huge fantasy, I think, that we all have, the entire cast and our fans, that there's some sort of follow-up, whether it's you know, a movie, or whether, you know, Netflix wants to bring us back, right, as they have with other beloved shows like Gilmore Girls, and you're just an idea.
Sign us up.
I think, well, I mean, we would love that. I think that the cast would be so excited to catch up, and to give the fans another sneak peek.
See, I'm
into
not crazy for asking that. I love it. I wanted to live on that set too. I mean, it was such a gorgeous set. It was futuristic and everything.
The set and the wardrobe. Pat Field designed the wardrobe, and
amazing.
I think the sets and the wardrobe were just as much a part of making that show a revelation on television. We had so many amazing artists and collaborators just bringing that whole vision to life. It was unlike anything that you'd had seen on television up to that point.
Right. I'm curious, I don't know if you have nieces or nephews now, or if you have kids one day, is there a role that you can't wait to show them that you did, either a movie or a TV show, something that you're like, I can't wait when you're old enough to watch this?
Well, right now I am the most popular aunt because of that I voice Astrid on How to Train Your Dragon. That's like the one that gets me all the points. I'm excited for them to grow up and to see Ugly Betty and to see Real Women Have Curves, and to see, you know, I haven't gone back and watched these things. Maybe there's a point in your life where you're like, oh, I feel far enough away from that person that I was that I can go watch that, but it's still all very uncomfortable to go back and, you know, see. It's like home videos, but worse, you know. It's like, because sometimes you're forcing it and it doesn't feel natural, but anyway.
I love that. Yeah. Now, let's talk about your producer status on Superstore. What made you decide that this was another role that you wanted to take on in addition to also acting on the show?
The producing.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the producing has been really interesting. I think shortly after the success of Betty and sort of the you know, the recognition that I got with that, I started getting approached to, you know, produce things. I was like, I don't even know what that means. What does that mean, produce things? I'm like, I have a job. Why would I do that? And, you know, there's all kinds of producing. You can stick your name on something that's already going, or something that's already been shot. They just want to add your name because it'll give it a lift. Or, you know, you find a piece of material as a kernel of an idea and you bring it all the way through. And so being approached to kind of to do that made me think, oh, if I did put my name on something, what would I want to say, and what would I want to use any leverage I have to bring into the world? And so I started dabbling in producing and developing, you know, international formats that I could develop into U.S. TV shows. And I just started collaborating with writers, other producers that I asked to kind of mentor me and teach me. And it has kind of snowballed into a production company. I have a production company, and Take Fountain.
You have to tell them the
after
reason
the Betty
the
Davis quote when Johnny Carson was, "What's your advice to a young actress trying to get into Hollywood?" She's like, "Take Fountain." Instead of Sunset or Hollywood. That was a really bad Betty Davis impression, by the way. It's fine. She said, "Take Fountain." So that's I love Betty Davis, and I loved watching her movies when I was young. So that was a throw to her. But what was I saying? Oh, the
No,
producing.
you know what I was going to ask too, though, is that the Take Fountain, it's not just, of course, to, help beat the traffic from some of the other streets, but which is so important, by the way, but it's also, take the road less traveled.
That was it. Yeah. The essence of Take Fountain is take the road no one else is taking. Yeah. Take the road less traveled and take your own way, make your own path, basically. So yeah, now I have this production company and I work with writers and I develop pitches and pitch to studios and networks and have sold some ideas and still, it's a grind and you learn to appreciate, everyone's work because none of it is easy. None of it is easy. If you want easy, like get out of this industry. It's work and it's hard. And when you go through the process, you start to appreciate things that are good even more. You go, wow, because, it's a lot of smart people every year trying to bring really great ideas to life. And those ideas don't always work out. And it's not because there aren't talented and smart people attached. It's because it's really hard to make something good, and so I love producing. I love collaborating. I love working with writers. And then I think on top of it, there's this knowing that, look, I have a certain amount of access in this industry, and there are stories that I am dying to see made, and there are faces I'm dying to see on television and screen. There are, we need more representation, and it's going to take one person at a time to champion those ideas and to push them through. And so in a way, I love producing and I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it, but it is a lot of work and it's a lot of work to take on top of being an actor. But I do see the need for it. I see the need for those of us who are in positions of access or decision making to push forward the change, and champion new ideas and champion creative people behind the camera and in front of the camera that are representative of the rest of us. Mm-hmm. And so I love the producing. And in terms of Superstore, I just felt like I was in a place where I wanted to be a part of the conversation. I was really interested in what Justin was building, and I thought, yes, that's exciting to me, and that's something that I don't just want to put my talent as an actor behind, but I want to put my ideas behind that too. And that's what, I would say to younger actors and to fellow actors is, have faith in your own ideas too. I think it's really hard to sit around and wait for somebody else to open a door for you. But if you invest in yourself and invest in your own ideas, then you're creating doors for yourself and you're creating doors for other people around you too. And so I think this producing has really been super empowering to me, especially coming from a place of being like the actor who just wants to get, a read and, I want to audition.
Yeah. Can you run for president, please? Really, you're so poised all the time. You're such a talented actress, whether it's comedy or drama. I'm curious, what do your scripts look like for Superstore? Do you mark them up constantly with highlighter and notes here, or is it pretty plain? Tell me about your process before you go in to tape an episode.
Yeah. Usually, when I'm first building a character, yes, there's a lot of writing. There's a lot of writing I did with Amy beforehand. Her backstory that I don't know if it's the same backstory Justin has when he's writing her, but it's my backstory. I don't know that anyone will ever know it. But yes, there's a lot of intention and work put behind for me wrapping my mind around these characters. What's great about a TV series and living with a character is it starts to move away from theory and just become practice, and it just becomes a part of your muscle memory, and you know what it's like to be that character. And you walk on set and yeah, there are times where now and I'm sure maybe when I start season 2, I'll need to kind of ramp into it. But after a certain point, you're showing up every day. You're getting into this character. You're interacting with other characters that it does become a little bit of trusting yourself and just showing up and knowing that all this work that I'd done beforehand, it doesn't go away. It stays with me. And the work I did in season 1 will be there for me in season 2, and it will build and build. And I think I become more and more confident when I'm doing a TV series role because I have that time to interact. I have that time to get to know this character, and so I can trust myself more. I think shorter films, films and shorter gigs, plays and stuff. Yes, there's a lot of this, a lot of work.
Totally. No, I love, you talk about, and it's so true in whatever industry you're in, you have to work hard. You have to apply yourself day in and day out. I've also learned it's so important to take time for yourself, to find the things that, re-energize you and allow you to have those breaks. Do you take that time for yourself too, as hard as you're working and you have your hands in so many different things? How important is it for you, what you've learned, in order to kind of, get those creative juices flowing again and have that break? Because no, you don't.
No. I was going to say, I was shaking my head no, but I was saying yes. That's a thing we do, right? Yes, absolutely. I mean, for me, actually, if I could go back to one of your earlier questions of, was there ever a time where you thought of like throwing in the hat, or the towel?
Whatever.
Do you throw in the hat? Is that a thing? Throw in my hat?
Mary Tyler Moore did, so,
Great.
Works for us.
I think post Ugly Betty, not that I was like ready to quit, but I was drained. Like 4 years of 10 months out of the year, really 6 days a week, because we were shooting till 6 a.m. on a Saturday. I was in every scene. I was, it was great, but it was a lot. And I was so tired and I was so drained, and I would feel so anxious, like, oh, I have to do a movie on my hiatus. I can't just sit and rest. So I'd push myself and I'd do a project or 2 projects in between. And I came to the end of these 4 years and I just, I felt so depleted. And when I thought about working and acting, joy didn't come along with that thought, and that really upset me. That joy wasn't accompanying the thought of working, and I think that there was just no balance in my life. I wasn't being a whole person. There was no life for me outside of the work, and I've always been someone who's been very interested and invested in other things than just my work. And so actually what I did when I ended Ugly Betty was I went back to school. I went, but
Such an overachiever. I'm so impressed. Wow.
I started USC when I was 17, right out of high school, and studied international relations, and then worked throughout most of it. But then when Ugly Betty came around, there was just no doing both.
Of course.
So I took a hiatus, and then it was this thing that saved me from this drought, where I was just like, I'm so tired. Who am I? Like, I barely know this man I've been living with for 7 years. We never see each other. Who are my friends? What's my life? And I went back to school, and I kind of reconnected to like Geology 101. I'm not kidding. and I was so excited. I'd come home. I'd be like, did you know this about the ocean's floor? And
coming next fall on NBC.
Yeah. And I have to say, like, that really, that rejuvenated me. And the thing that I have sworn to myself moving forward, even when it comes to picking jobs like this, like Superstore, was that I would never again sort of lose the rest of who I was to just the work, because it suffocates the work too. Because if you don't, if you're not inspired, if you're not taking in at the same time, you suffocate the work, and you lose something to say, and so to me, it is extremely important to try and create a balance. And balance doesn't mean 50-50, balance just means a ratio of, giving due and time to all the things that make me. And so that is definitely something that I learned the hard way, and really matters to me moving forward.
I love that. Let's get to some audience questions really quick, because I know we're running out of time. This one is from Amber, and she would love to know, as you get older, what kind of roles are you looking forward to playing?
Good question.
A geologist.
Is Amber here? Are these questions from people who are here?
Right there.
Oh, good. Hi, Amber. Thank you. What kind of roles am I looking? I always thought like, oh, I can't wait to be in my 30s, because that's when like they start writing roles for women. I didn't know then. There was like, they just don't write roles for women, but I was always excited to kind of get to an age where I would get to play those more complex roles. And I actually love being in my 30s. You couldn't pay me to go back to the 20s. And I am excited about, as I age, how much more depth I have to bring to the work and to the role, and that was another thing, like when you are in the public eye, or when, all of your work has been in front of an audience and you haven't had an opportunity to sort of mess up, or you feel like there's so much writing on everything you do. That's really, you can really come from a place of fear. You won't take roles that you don't quite feel that you know how to do, or I don't know, I might mess that one up, and I need people to think that I'm this fully formed person who knows what she is and isn't ever going to mess up. And I think as I grow older, I've kind of let that go, and I've said, I've thought it's okay that I'm getting better at what I do. And who I was when I was 17, who I was when I was 21, I'm not that person, and I'm a better actress, and I can't wait to show that and to express that and to get to live that. And so I am only so excited about the kinds of roles that lie ahead as I, as a person, grow and get deeper. So
love that. Okay, this one is from Susan. Is Susan here today? Or they might.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, Susan. Okay, how long did it take for you to feel that you could give up on your side jobs and only rely on just your acting jobs? Like a year, 2 years, more?
Well, like I said, I don't think that I had success kind of very early on. That didn't mean that I was always financially solvent. When I was in college, I remember having to take a math tutoring job to kind of buy my books and put gas in my car. And I was doing a lot of independent films. It wasn't until I think that I got onto Ugly Betty that I felt like, okay, I'm gonna be okay. But even then, like the day Ugly Betty ended, I'm like, we can't have a housekeeper. Like the dog walker can't come. Like I'm not making money. I think that's like a scary thing for actors, is you're either making money or you're not making money, and you can never really relax. And being someone who came from a poor working class family who doesn't know how to relate to money, for me, I'm like, if I'm working, I feel like I get to order the steak, and if I'm not, then I'll just have a bowl of cereal or something for dinner. But again, like everyone's path is different. But for me, it wasn't until till Ugly Betty came around that I could really stop taking on other things. Well, I started working at 17. And then I got Betty when I was I was 21. So like 5 years, yeah.
This is from Jonathan. He says, do you fight stereotypes in the roles that you are offered? You spoke a little bit about that. If so, how do you handle it?
Yeah, that's a really good and tough question. I mean, I think that I would say that there are degrees of how to interact. Sometimes roles come to you and you're just like, no, like I'm not, no way. But even when I wasn't successful and couldn't pay my bills, I remember one of my manager, like I'd just done Real Women Have Curves and had gone to Sundance and had won these awards. And then he was sending me out on pilot season for the chubby Latino with one line who's like, oh, damn, or whatever. And I was like, I'm not going out for that. And, I didn't have money in the bank and I wasn't that successful, but I was just like, I'm not doing that. And look, and I'm not saying my standards have to be everyone else's standards. I get that, we're all at different places of what we can accept and what we can't accept and what we have to accept. But I do feel like there was always sort of a bottom that I wouldn't touch, And that manager actually, when I fired him because he refused to stop sending me out on those roles, he said to my lawyer, he said, someone needs to tell that girl she has unrealistic expectations of what she can accomplish in this business. But it's cool because I'm over it. I remember, it was like he was saying, who do you think you are saying no to this? And I was like, I don't know who you think I am, but I know who I am, and I'm better than that. And again, it's a privileged place to be, to say, I'm not going to take the work, but it's hard because you want to work, and you don't want to piss off your reps, and you want to keep opening doors, but we all have to decide for ourselves. Something, I heard a quote, and I don't remember who said it and where, but it was a black actor who said, as a black actor, you don't worry about getting the role. You worry about how you're going to explain getting the role to your family. And that really hit home for me because, we don't always, we're not always fighting for the creme de la creme. We're fighting for these small pieces that might give us opportunities into something else. And it can be really tough and tiring. And I would say that there were roles that maybe on the page were written in not fully formed ways, but I would take the job and then do my best in the role and in conversations with writers to grow that role into something better. And so there's that too. It doesn't always have to be there on the page, and also giving a little bit of the benefit of the doubt depending on who's on the other side and just what's on the page about, okay, maybe this person just doesn't know this experience, and maybe I can come to it with an experience and collaborate and create a role here that is more dimensional, and I definitely think that there were some of those where I take the part and say, okay, I'm going to take this, but it's important to me to grow this into something that I feel good about. So there's that too, there's all different degrees of how to interact when those opportunities come up. And sometimes, and then the other side of it is like, sometimes I just want to take a stupid fun role and I don't want to have to represent every single Latino in the world, Like, yeah, okay, I have all of these like standards and I care about being respected, and sometimes I just want to like do a stupid fun role and have it not mean anything. But that relationship to the work that you do is so deeply personal. It has to be what's right for you at what time in your life, and what you feel good about doing and putting out there.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to wrap this up today. And I was going to say, it's so impressive that, so many people just talk the talk about what needs to happen and the change that needs to occur, and you are doing it. And that is the epitome of a glamour girl and just everybody that we just root for in life. So thank you on behalf of everybody for just making the change happen.
Thank you.
So
and thank you for coming. This was
yes,
lovely.
thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed.